Welcome to Chapter 3, Biology and Behavior. This is the first of two chapters in our Unit 3 on mind and body. Our second chapter is Chapter 4, and that will take a look at sensation and perception. So by now you should have seen the Phineas Gage video, or if you have not yet, make sure you make a note of these questions. What do you think? How did Phineas Gage's personality change after his brain injury? And what are some other possible circumstances in which individuals experience brain trauma? Section 1 takes a look at the nervous system. Our main idea, the nervous system contains billions of cells called neurons. Neurons communicate with one another through the central and peripheral nervous systems. We have 4 reading focus questions. What are neurons and how do they work? How do neurotransmitters work as chemical messengers? What does the central nervous system control? And how is the peripheral nervous system structured? Neurons. The nervous system has 2 parts. The central nervous system consists of the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system is made up of nerve cells that send messages between the central nervous system and other parts of the body. Nerve cells are called neurons. What makes up a neuron? The soma or cell body produces energy that fuels the neuron's activity. Dendrites receive information from other neurons and pass the message through the cell body. An axon transmits information. Myelin is a white, fatty substance that covers the axon, insulating and protecting it. The myelin sheath helps to speed up the work of neurons. Axon terminals branch out at the end of the axon. So how does the neuron communicate? Messages are sent from the axon terminals of one neuron to the dendrites of another neuron. In order for this process to happen, the message must cross a synapse. A synapse is a junction between the axon terminals of one neuron and the dendrites of another. Messages travel only in one direction. Messages enter the dendrites, travel through the cell body and axon to the axon terminals, and cross the synapses to the dendrites of other neurons. And here we have a picture, anatomy of 2 neurons. This is what you will be making with your candy. So the messages enter the neurons through the dendrites, which is right here, travel along the axon, and then send from the axon terminals to the muscles, glands, and other neurons. And here is the synapse. If you look at the close-up right here, it's going to be the gap between the end of one neuron and the start of another. Here's your first reading check. Identify supporting details. How does each of the main parts of a neuron function? Neurotransmitters, the body's chemical messengers. Neurons send messages across synapses through the release of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are chemicals that are stored in sacs in the axon terminals. A neuron fires or sends a message by releasing neurotransmitters. The message is converted into an electrical impulse that travels through the neuron. The message is transmitted to the next neuron by other neurotransmitters until the message arrives at its destination. There are several kinds of neurotransmitters. There's acetylcholine, which is involved in the control of muscles and in learning and memory, and dopamine is involved primarily in motor behavior. Here's some divisions of the nervous system. We have the main nervous system broken into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system has 2 parts, the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system also has 2 parts, the autonomic system and the somatic system. The autonomic system controls the involuntary muscles and internal organs and is broken into the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system. The parasympathetic system calms your body after emergencies, and the sympathetic system prepares your body for action. Going back to the somatic system, that is your voluntary muscles and sense organs. Your next reading check, find the main idea. How do neurotransmitters function? The central nervous system. The central nervous system consists of the neurons of the spinal cord and the brain. The spinal cord is a column of nerves about as thick as a thumb that extends from the brain down the back. The spinal cord transmits messages between the brain and the muscles and glands in the body. The spinal cord sends messages to specific muscles, and the spinal cord is involved in spinal reflexes. Reading check number 3. Summarize, what are the functions of the central nervous system? Your peripheral nervous system. This is made up of the somatic and the autonomic nervous systems. The somatic nervous system transmits sensory messages to the central nervous system. It carries messages from the voluntary muscles and sense organs. It is activated by touch, pain, changes in temperature, and changes in body position. The autonomic nervous system regulates the body's vital functions, such as heartbeat, breathing, digestion, and blood pressure. And it has 2 divisions. The sympathetic nervous system reacts to stress, and the parasympathetic nervous system restores peace to the body's systems. And your 4th reading check, identify supporting details. What are the systems that make up the peripheral nervous system? And that is it for section 1, looking at it at a glance. The nervous system functions as a communication system for the body. Messages are transmitted by neurons to axons and dendrites. The nervous system is made up of the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, which transmits messages between the central nervous system and all parts of the body.